So here's another place that I think it's incredibly easy to get stuck when you're working with couples who have just discovered betrayal. So, as I mentioned, a lot of times the betrayed spouse has lots and lots of questions. And as a therapist, sometimes you wonder, is that TMI? Don't ask that question, because if you do, you're going to have images in your mind's eye about what happened, and you don't need to be thinking about that. Whereas other therapists that I consult would think, no, asking questions is a good thing, and encouraging the unfaithful spouse to answer those questions. And what I've kind of noticed is that the therapist cuts off questions at the point at which the therapist, him or herself, feels uncomfortable with the details that are being offered. In other words, it's a therapist-induced ending to asking those questions, and it shouldn't be that way. This is therapy, about your clients, and the question is, how do you help people make decisions about whether they should ask questions, how detailed those questions should be, and when enough is enough. That is such an important skill, and it's so easy to get stuck there. And related to that, there are times when the betrayed spouse asks questions, and they're decent questions to be asking, but when the unfaithful spouse answers those questions and answers those questions honestly, the betrayed spouse gets so angry and, again, sometimes abusive. Well, we know that if you want to encourage the unfaithful spouse to be honest and open and responsive, what they really need is positive feedback. They don't need to have the club come down on them. So how do you deal with that? That's a very challenging situation. And also related to that is that it is very often the case when the betrayed spouse is answering all of those questions, they tend to feel like they need to protect the betrayed spouse, or sometimes themselves, and not tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I know that if you have been working with couples where there's been infidelity, one of the things that you have heard is that if the unfaithful spouse has been offering details about the affair little at a time, so that the betrayed spouse finds out about more information a few weeks later or a few months later, the betrayed spouse almost always says that finding out that I didn't get the whole truth and finding out about it later was re-traumatizing, because I was trying to rebuild trust and now I don't know what to believe. So what do you do with that? How do you handle that? I mean, that was certainly a place that I got stuck, and I can tell you that so many people that I supervise say, what do I do when I find myself in a situation where the unfaithful spouse simply isn't being fully honest?